planning on buying the boat?
Well, we didn't really have the money.
John Julius Jacobson Jr. entered this world on a sweltering August night in Sun Valley, California in 1979, but his birth was far from a joyous occasion. Born into a twisted and dysfunctional family, John's father was a notorious drug dealer and addict who reveled in the chaos of their home. His mother, Lynette O'Daniel, had a taste for cocaine that quickly turned her into a willing participant in the orgies that consumed their nights. As a mere child, John was forced to witness unspeakable acts and be surrounded by drugged-out strangers. To add insult to injury, despite being named after his father, John was treated with violence instead of love and respect. His father's fists would rain down upon him without reason or mercy, while his mother turned a blind eye. This was the toxic environment that shaped little John into an angry and broken young man. Lynette would later go on to say that she thought everything was okay because she would try and make sure that John would sleep in bed before she participated in any illegal or inappropriate activities. Whatever she did, it did not protect John because John's father was able to sexually assault him when no one was around. After years of enduring the hellish life in the drug house with John Sr., Lynette finally had a moment of clarity and realized she no longer wanted to be part of it. She made the daring decision to leave her husband and John behind, knowing full well the consequences that would follow. As expected, John's treatment at the hands of his father only got worse after Lynette's departure. As he entered teenage years and his body began to change, his father's rage intensified. Every pimple on John's face was met with cruel berating and physical abuse. Despite his father remarrying and having more children, things did not improve for John. He continued to endure brutal assaults, and he would be assaulted with various objects, including jagged toothpicks being shoved under his fingernails on multiple occasions. The scars of this constant torment would forever mark his once innocent mind. There was a little hope amidst the chaos, though. The time he spent to himself or being engrossed in the television set allowed John to grow a unique passion for acting. It is unclear how or who started taking young John to commercial auditions, but when he turned 14, he began auditioning. He ended up getting booked for the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers show as a character named Roger in the episode Second Chance. Although it was a small role and his appearance was uncredited, John was extremely excited about the opportunity. I also want to note that some videos out here on YouTube claim that he was a Red Ranger, but he was never a Red Ranger on the show. Unfortunately, his acting career did not take off, but like many other child actors, his life would take a major turn. Indeed, the journey from child stardom to adulthood is often fraught with challenges. Child actors are thrust into a world of fame and attention at a tender age, a situation that can lead to unique difficulties as they grow. Sometimes it can lead to difficulties in learning how to attend to everyday tasks such as scheduling, doing laundry, and cooking meals, skills that most of us acquire during our growing up years. Pair this with the need to escape his father's wrath. When John turned 20, he decided he needed change and structure. He joined the United States Marine Corps. His stay was short-lived, though, because shortly after joining, he took an unauthorized leave for 15 days. 15 days of no communication or checking in was enough for the Marine Corps to discharge him. With no formal education, no job experience, and being recently discharged, John hopped from job to job, struggling to make ends meet. Finally, John was able to find a steady job working for a mortgage firm, but sometimes, some people are unable to accept when things are going good for themselves, and that was the same for John. Instead of working and making his checks like a hard-working citizen, John decided that he needed money in a quicker fashion. Equipped with a recently purchased gun and plastic handcuffs, John decided to rob his place of work. The robbery was a fail, though, and he was immediately arrested. John was found guilty of attempted robbery, and he was sentenced to a year in jail. When John got out of jail, he met a woman by the name of Jennifer Henderson, and the couple had 2 children together. After a couple of years of knowing each other, they got married in 2002. They were unable to afford a place of their own, so Jennifer's parents allowed the couple to live with them in Long Beach, California. John and Jennifer were living in the garage. Jennifer did not have a criminal past, but she would create one after marrying a criminal who did. The two were always short on money and decided to start committing crimes together. They would rob local businesses and gas stations. The thrill and rush they received from robbing others was once very exciting, but just like an addict who needs more drugs or more hardcore drugs, they decided they needed to up the ante on their robberies. Before we proceed though, I would like to extend my gratitude to you all for watching. This video is not sponsored, so sharing, subscribing, and commenting helps the channel grow. If you are enjoying the video thus far, please consider doing one of those things. And now back to the story. I would now like to take a quick segue to talk about a couple named Thomas and Jackie Hawks. As a child, Thomas had a passion for boats and the sea. He became a sailing instructor at the young age of 17. He would spend every other weekend boating and had dreams of living on the sea. Things changed for him when he got married and had kids. He began working as a fireman, but after his 1979 divorce, he left his firefighting job and moved from California to Arizona to be close to his sons. Thomas had worked as a military police officer, a bouncer, and a probation officer. In 1986, Thomas was at a canoe race and he met a woman named Jackie. In 1988, they were married. The two were truly the perfect match for each other, and Jackie appreciated his love for the sea. In 2001, Thomas told his sons that the sea was calling him and Jackie after seeing a dream boat for sale they fell in love with. Thomas was quoted saying, "The sea was calling us, and we can't wait any longer. Life is too short to put things off, and one cannot discover new oceans unless they have the courage to lose sight of the shore." 54-year-old Thomas quit his job, and 44-year-old Jackie agreed with the big decision and sold the house they lived in. The couple bought a yacht in Long Beach Harbor, California, and decided to live on this yacht. They were enjoying the sea. They would invite friends on sea trips, go scuba diving, and travel to local islands. Thomas and Jackie spent 2 years at sea, but they found out they were going to be grandparents. They loved the sea, but they also wanted to be able to enjoy their grandchildren. With the exciting new news of a grandson on the way, it was summer of 2004, and the couple decided to put their yacht on sale for $440,000. In the months that followed, Thomas and Jackie were waiting for responses, and in the meantime, their grandson was born. They got to meet him when he was 2 weeks old, and Thomas cuddled his newborn grandson and said, "I'm going to teach you how to swim, I'm going to teach you how to build things, and go sailing." Little did they know that that would be the last time they would ever see their grandson again. This is where John Jacobson and his wife Jennifer come back in this story. 25-year-old John answered the yacht ad in November of 2004. Of course, not to actually purchase the yacht, but because he and Jennifer thought this would be their big payday. Thomas and Jackie were initially skeptical of John and Jennifer, but the two lowered their guards when John told them that he was a famous child actor on the Power Rangers show, and he used his earnings to invest in real estate. Thomas and Jackie felt even more comfortable when Jennifer brought her firstborn to a meeting and they noticed Jennifer was pregnant. They assumed the couple was harmless and had true intentions to purchase the boat. They had no idea his Power Rangers story was embellished and that John had recruited people to help him rob them. Their guards were so down that they even held John and Jennifer's baby. When John was locked up for robbing his mortgage firm job, he met a 22-year-old jail guard by the name of Alonzo McCain. Who knows why the two developed a friendship in prison, but the two remained friends after John was released. John told Alonzo about his plan to rob Thomas and Jackie, and it was a plan he had done before. John actually admitted to Alonzo that he would look for rich people, kill them, and would keep whatever money he could find. He asked Alonzo, "Would you like to make a few $1,000,000?" Alonzo was a for sure in and agreed to help John. John needed more manpower though. He met a gang member from the insane Crips in Long Beach by the name of Myron Sandora Gardner. Myron was an ex-convict who served time for involuntary manslaughter. John proposed his plan to Myron, but Myron was not interested in this job. Myron decided to introduce John to another insane Crip member who would probably be willing to help him, and that Crip member was John Fitzgerald Kennedy. From now on, I'm going to refer to John Kennedy as Kennedy. Kennedy, by the way, also served time in prison for attempted murder, so killing was second nature for him. When John told Kennedy of his plans, he agreed to help him. So now John had enlisted the help of Alonzo and Kennedy. John asked Thomas and Jackie if he could go on a test cruise and bring a couple of friends with him. The couple agreed. John told the couple that Alonzo was his friend and that Kennedy was his accountant. On November 15, 2004, John, 22-year-old Alonzo and 40-year-old Kennedy went on the yacht for a fake test cruise. They brought stun guns and handcuffs with them. When the yacht left the shore and they were far enough to where anyone by the shoreline would not see the couple in distress, Alonzo and Kennedy ambushed Thomas while he was in the cabin. Jackie, who was in the galley, saw what was happening and began to scream. Alonzo tried to use the stun gun on her, but it wasn't working, so he had to use his hands to subdue her. John then forced the couple to sign over ownership of the yacht. Once the documents were signed, Thomas and Jackie were handcuffed, blindfolded, and their mouths were covered. They were then forced to walk up to the deck. While walking up to the deck, Thomas kicked his foot backwards and made contact with John, making John fly backwards. Not being able to see did not stop Thomas from fighting back. He punched and was able to make contact with Kennedy's right temple. John, Kennedy, and Alonzo had enough. They tied Thomas and Jackie to an anchor and dumped them into the Pacific Ocean. While making their way back to shore, the men helped each other loot the yacht. When they returned to the port, Kennedy grabbed a beer from the refrigerator, pulled out a fishing pole, and began fishing while sipping on his beer. The trio had no care in the world. The very next day, the first thing Jennifer did was pay a notary $2,000 to backdate paperwork to transfer ownership of the yacht. To prepare themselves for police and questioning, John had a friend look at color photocopies of Thomas and Jackie's driver's licenses so she could describe the couple to police as if she had seen them and knew exactly what they looked like. While the criminals were scheming, people were concerned with Jackie and Thomas's whereabouts. The couple hadn't told anyone about their plans to take a couple of men out for a test cruise, so no one knew where they were, and they were concerned. Actually, Thomas had recently asked a friend to help him with his soon-to-be move to Arizona. A friend had stopped by his boat, but he was alarmed when he didn't see Thomas or his wife. Thomas's brother Jim, a former police chief, went looking for his brother, and he ended up finding his brother's yacht in shambles, so an investigation began. Within a couple of days, police got a lead, and they made contact with John and Jennifer. They were both willing to talk to detectives, and they said that they bought the yacht from Thomas and Jackie, and that after signing the documents, Thomas and Jackie took the money and told them that they were heading to Mexico. Sergeant Evan Saylor believed John and Jennifer. He was quoted saying, "They both came off as genuine. They were as cool as cucumbers. This guy was probably the best pathological liar I've ever met." On November 26, 2004, authorities made an attempt to access Thomas and Jackie Hawk's bank account from Mexico. The family was notified, and the victim's family immediately filed a missing persons report. Thomas and Jackie's son, Ryan Hawks, did not believe John or Jennifer. He was quoted saying, "I knew I was chasing something that wasn't true. I was 99% sure they were dead 4 days after it happened." Police could not find $440,000 in any of the bank accounts Thomas or Jackie owned, so when they spoke to John again, he admitted, but another lie, that he paid for the yacht in cash from money he made from a drug deal. Ryan was quoted saying, "My father took more than $400,000 in unmarked, laundered money across the hood of their car in the dark, and then ran off to Mexico? Right. Now I have 3 questions. How, why, and where?" John showed police proof of purchase documents though, so police were having a very hard time in their investigation because there were no bodies and no clue where the couple was. John told detectives that the Hawks left in their car with money. This is when John finally messed up. He mentioned Alonzo for the first time. He claimed that Alonzo was a witness to the purchase, so now detectives had another person they could interrogate. John then told detectives that the reason for purchasing the boat was to launder money related to an armed burglary he was convicted for back in 2002. Initially, all of the people involved in the crime fled to Mexico, and John even attempted to access Thomas and Jackie Hawk's bank accounts, but they were unsuccessful. They couldn't arrest John for murder yet, but he was arrested for admitting to paying for the boat in cash for a money laundering scheme. Alonzo was still hiding in Mexico, but when he found out John was arrested, he felt the need to return to the States and talk to authorities so he could get a plea deal. Police were finally able to speak with Alonzo, and in March of 2005, Alonzo confessed to the crime and he was arrested. With information Alonzo gave to detectives, Jennifer, Kennedy, and John were all arrested as well. John always maintained his innocence, but detectives had evidence like a receipt they found on the yacht from Target that had items such as bleach, trash bags, and Tums. With more and more evidence coming to light, People's mouths went from tight-lipped to loosey-goosey. Detectives found out that the Hawks' Honda CR-V was missing, and they found it in Baja, California. Witnesses said John and Jennifer gave it to them. Detectives were finally able to speak with the notary Jennifer met up with, and she confessed that she was given a $2,000 bribe to backdate documents for the yacht sale. Authorities were granted a search warrant for Jennifer's parents' house, and upon checking the garage, they found multiple items that were stolen from the yacht. In total, unlike the millions John told Alonzo and Kennedy they would make for this hit, they were only able to make out with $3,800. When it was time for trial, John continued to express that he had no parts in the crime. It was easy for Orange County prosecutor Matt Murphy to pin the murders on John, Kennedy, and Alonzo, but it was hard to pin the murder on Jennifer. It wasn't until detectives found out that Jennifer was on the phone with John the whole time during the murder. Alonzo agreed to testify against all of his co-defendants. Everyone pled guilty except for John. Ryan and Matt Hawks were always in court, hoping everyone involved would get the harshest sentences. Ryan was quoted saying, "It's important so they can see me. I don't know what gives them the idea or the right to throw my parents' lives away and destroy mine. It'll never be over. It'll never heal. I'm a 24/7 reminder of my father. Every time I look in the mirror, I see him." Matt Hawks was quoted saying, "When you hear that anchor coming around from the bow of the boat to the stern, you hear that anchor chain dragging. You can pretty much anticipate your fate. I owe it to myself and my family to make sure this guy goes where he's supposed to go. We're going to see this all the way through." Jennifer was tried first, and she was found guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder on Friday, November 17, 2006, after just 4 hours of deliberation. She was sentenced to 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole. She was transferred from an Orange County jail to Central California Women's Facility in Chowchilla, California. While John was awaiting trial, he was busted for soliciting a fellow inmate to murder his father and cousin. You'd think being locked up would keep John out of trouble, but it didn't. After further investigation, police found out that John's father and cousin were witnesses to yet another murder John committed, the death of John Jarvie, a man found dead in Mexico back in 2003. We know that back in 2003, John was unemployed and survived by living a life of crime. He was locked up for a short while in 2003 at a private jail in Seal Beach, serving a work furlough program. This is where John met Jarvie. Jarvie had money, and that was John's language. On December 26, 2003, Jarvie went to a bank in Laguna Beach, and he cashed 2 checks for a total of $25,000. After cashing the checks, Jarvie called John, and no more than a few hours later, John got a hold of the cash and immediately spent $18,000 in crisp, fresh brand new $100 bills at a boatyard. The remaining money was deposited into a joint account with Jennifer. What do you think had to have happened for Jarvie to give up that much money? The very next day, on December 27, 2003, Jarvie called John first thing in the morning. We don't know the details of that call, but John enlisted the help from his 25-year-old cousin, Michael William Jr., and phone records show that both of them were in communication with each other a lot on December 26th and December 27th. They drove to Mexico, and the next day, authorities found his dead body near Baja, California. Jarvie's body was found at 4 in the afternoon, and John's car was seen crossing the U.S. border at 6 p.m., just 2 hours later. John and Michael most likely met up with Jarvie because they ended up ditching Jarvie's car somewhere else. There was so much going on with John. He was now being accused of committing 3 murders, but there was something else going on with him mentally. In the past, there were terms like gender identity disorder, and a person could be diagnosed with transsexualism or gender incongruence. The medical community deemed the incongruence between the biological sex assigned at birth and one's gender identity to be a disorder. Although identifying as transgender today is not considered a mental health disorder, many people in this community experience gender dysphoria, and medical experts say that distress can lead to other mental health issues. Whatever the case may be, John Jacobson was suffering from gender dysphoria. Yes, he referred to himself as a he, bragged about being a popular male actor, and had 2 children. Deep down on the inside, he believed he was born in the wrong body. On March 13, 2008, while in jail, John was almost successful in completely severing his penis with a sharp weapon he had acquired in jail. John received no mental help, but he did receive medical treatment and was sent back to his cell the following day. The media was now all over this case, and instead of the focus being on John's 3 victims, it was now about him and his gender. Even his defense attorney admitted the goal was for people to feel sorry for him so he could get a lighter sentence when it was time for sentencing. He believed that this was just another lie from pathological liar John that many people do for fame. John was busted for lying about being a sniper in the army and told so many stories, so prosecutors never believed his gender issues. John decided to change his name from John Jacobson to Sklar Deleon. For the purpose of this video, I will continue to call him John. John interviewed with ABC News and he said, "I'm not attracted to guys, but I wanted the surgery, and I knew 100% I wanted the surgery, but I only like females." John was also found to have been researching gender change surgery in jail. Some people started spreading rumors that the only reason he committed the crimes was to have money for a gender surgery. On September 22, 2008, the jury selection for his trial began. Prosecutors were quoted saying that he was the best liar and a pathological liar. Even his defense attorney claimed that John was just a big liar. On October 20th, John was convicted of 3 counts of first-degree murder and special circumstances for financial gain and multiple victims. This whole time, John kept expressing his innocence. It did not matter how much evidence or witness testimony there was against him. He kept expressing his innocence. When it was time for defense to give their final statements before the jury deliberated his sentence, his defense attorney wrote on a large poster paper that John indeed did kill 3 people. His defense lawyer said that if they continued with expressing his innocence, the jury would have no sympathy for him. So now the tactic was to talk about John's horrible childhood and get jurors to feel sorry for him and to respect that he finally admitted to the crimes. The last-ditch effort to make John look good did not work, and on November 6, 2008, the jury recommended John be sentenced to death. On April 10, 2009, Orange County Superior Court Judge Frank Faisal officially sentenced John to death. John Jacobson was transferred to San Quentin Prison for Men in Northern California. While on death row, John was finally expressing his guilt, but was now expressing that he only killed Thomas and Jackie to get money for hormone therapy, and then he had a reassignment surgery scheduled for 2 weeks after the date of the murders, and that he gave a Colorado doctor a $500 deposit. Prosecutor Matt Murphy said the whole thing with John was another cry for help, and it was another scheme concocted by a narcissistic person looking to get back in the headlines whatever the cost. There was no evidence whatsoever of his claims. While in prison, though, John was given the right to undergo hormone therapy to transition into a woman, and it was supported by the California ruling. The 8th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution requires that prisons provide inmates with medically necessary treatment for medical and mental health conditions, including inmates diagnosed with gender dysphoria. In 2014, a federal judge approved John's request for hormone therapy. Since then, John has fully transitioned into a female and is living life as a woman in a death row facility for men. The prison has also allowed him to be romantically involved with 2 women. I have seen documentaries in the past from death row prisons in other countries that allow conjugal visits. Do you guys think death row inmates should be allowed to have visits from women for that sole purpose? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Before I go, I want to give you all a few more facts about this story. In 2006, John and Jennifer officially divorced, and Jennifer changed her last name to Henderson. On February 19, 2009, John Fitzgerald Kennedy was found guilty on 2 counts of first-degree murder, and he was sentenced to death on May 1, 2009. He is serving his time at San Quentin just like John. Although prosecutors said Alonzo would not be getting a plea deal, he most definitely did because he pled guilty to 2 counts of voluntary manslaughter and robbery. On June 15, 2009, he was sentenced to 20 years and 4 months in prison, and he was eligible for parole in 2021. And lastly, we have Myron, the middleman between John and Kennedy meeting. Myron was in prison for 4 years, but his charges were dropped and he was released from prison. Thank you all for watching another episode of Death Row Executions. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and click one of these videos if you haven't watched them yet.